The skies above Valorian were bright and calm, painted in soft gold and blue, like a dream untouched by war. But on the ground, behind those peaceful colors, death moved like wind. The sickness had no name. It came like mist, quiet and gentle. And within days, it stole breath, turned skin to gray, and made eyes go blind. The people of Valorian were healers, builders, thinkers. They had never known war, never built weapons. They were watching their cities grow quiet, their families disappear, and their doctors cry in silence because no cure worked. All the galaxy knew what was happening. The Valorian leaders had sent pleas to 100 systems, offered everything they had, knowledge, minerals, even land for medicine. Most nations ignored them. Some sent soft words, none sent help. The sickness was too dangerous, too wild, too fast. And so Valorian, once proud and clean, became a ghost waiting to fall. Then one day something answered. A ship appeared above their main city. It came not through normal flight paths or with diplomatic messages. It dropped from the black like a shadow with no sound, no name, no flag. Its body was dark metal, shaped like a predator's tooth. And though it was small, the city's defense systems froze when it arrived. The skies around it turned cold. Clouds broke apart, birds fled. The ship hovered above the ancient marble tower, where the last of Valorian's council waited, dying. From the ship, a voice came not loud, but deep, rough, and direct. It did not offer peace or friendship. It only said, "Earth has heard your signal. Prepare for landing." The council watched with fear. Earth, the forgotten planet, the Deathworld. No one spoke of Earth openly. In stories, it was called wild, dangerous, a place where the trees could kill and the water could burn. A place where humans had survived disasters no other species could. They were not part of the Alliance anymore, not truly. They had grown silent for decades. And now they had answered. The ship landed on the white garden platform at the heart of the city. It cracked the stone. The wind around it felt thick, heavy, full of something alive. Steam hissed. Doors opened. From the darkness inside, to humans stepped out. One was tall, dressed in black armor that moved like muscle. The other was smaller, wearing a gray coat with metal gloves and glowing lenses over his eyes. They walked with the kind of calm only those who had seen worse things could hold. The council's head healer, Cyril Vaughn, came forward, his hands shaking. "You received our call?" he asked. Do you bring medicine?" The human in black armor said nothing. The one in gray reached into his coat and pulled out a clear case. Inside it was a flower. A single crimson-red bloom. Its petals pulsed slowly like it was breathing. The stem was covered in black thorns that shimmered with something toxic. The flower did not look peaceful. It looked like it wanted to bite. "This is your cure," the human said. His voice was cold, flat. "We call it bloodroot." The council leaned in, confused and afraid. "It looks poisonous," the human nodded. "It is. On our world, nothing harmless survives. This plant fights sickness by becoming more deadly than the sickness itself." One council member, shaking, whispered, "What happens to the patient?" The human's lips did not move, but his answer chilled the room. They either survive, or they don't. That night, the flower was tested. A volunteer, a young boy, named Liren, barely alive from the sickness, was chosen. His family had already buried 3 others. He had hours to live. The humans gave him a tea made from the bloodroot petals. His body screamed. His skin turned red. His veins turned black. He convulsed, coughed blood, screamed out done. Then he slept. For 2 days, everyone believed he had died. But on the 3rd day, Liren opened his eyes and asked for food. The sickness was gone. The council was stunned. The people began to hope. But hope became fear again when the second patient, a woman, did not wake. Her body broke under the bloodroot's power. The human in gray only shook his head. "We warned you. Doesn't save the weak." More tests followed.
Bye.
The flower worked, but not kindly. The treatment was brutal. Most who survived were never the same. Some screamed in their sleep. Others had glowing veins or scars shaped like vines, but they lived. And then came the garden. The humans requested space, 1 square mile, open land. They began planting. Not one flower, but hundreds. Different shapes, colors, smells. Some hissed when touched. Some dripped glowing sap. Some made the air taste like metal. These were not plants from a peaceful world. These were weapons grown from soil. The Valorian scientists watched with awe and horror. One asked, "Is this all medicine?" A human in black armor finally spoke. "Medicine is a word. On Earth, we learned long ago that survival doesn't come from kindness. It comes from pain." The city split. Some welcomed the humans, calling them saviors. Others called them monsters. Riots broke out. A group of scholars tried to burn the alien plants, screaming that they were being turned into something else. The humans did not stop them. The fire killed 10 plants. That night, those 10 plants grew back taller and sharper. One child asked Dax, a gray-coated human, "Do you have these flowers on Earth too?" Dax looked into the sky for a long time before answering. "We did. They saved us. But Earth paid a price for their gift. You will too." The child didn't understand. But the sky above Valorian was no longer golden. It had turned dark red, just like the flower, and far above, beyond the clouds. Other human ships waited, watching, listening, waiting to see if this world could truly survive the gift Earth had brought. Not a gift of peace, but a gift of ruthless medicine, born from a death world. Valorian had always believed in soft healing. Their doctors used light, scent, and sound to guide the body back to health. They whispered to cells, encouraged balance, and avoided pain at all costs. To them, medicine was a kindness, a trust between healer and patient. But Earth didn't believe in kindness. Earth believed in survival, and the humans made no apologies for that. The red flower bloodroot was spreading. The alien doctors called it a blessing and a curse. For every 3 people cured, 1 died. The others, they changed. Not just healed, but hardened. Their bodies grew tougher, their minds sharper. One woman who survived the flower's fire now had veins that glowed in the dark. Another child gained resistance to cold, but healing came. With horror, the process was brutal. The patient shook violently. Their skin peeled. Their eyes turned red, and their lungs screamed with each breath. For hours, their bodies battled the bloodroot. Some begged for death, and those who lived didn't speak of what they saw while under its effect. Dax, the human in gray, kept records. He watched every treatment. He studied the results with cold focus. He never cried, never winced. To him, pain was just another symptom. He said, "Your bodies were made in peace. Ours were forged in fire. You want healing without hurt. We don't have that. Earth doesn't give that." He wasn't lying. One day, a Valorian healer, Dr. Phi, begged him to stop using the bloodroot. "You're killing them," she cried. "This isn't healing. It's torture." Dax replied without looking up. "You asked for a cure, not comfort. Your people were dying when we arrived. We don't bring peace. We bring solutions. Now, solutions don't ask for permission." That night, a mother smuggled her child into the human garden, desperate for a chance to live. The child drank the flower tea, screamed, bled, survived. The next morning, she stood outside her home, stronger than ever, eyes glowing silver. The people began to whisper. They didn't know if the humans were saving them or changing them. Inside the garden, the human ship opened new chambers. Massive tanks held other Deathworld plants, each more terrifying than the last.
Ow.
One vine twisted like a serpent and hissed. When touched, another plant snapped open when someone got close, releasing gas that made soldiers faint. "These are your medicine?" Counselor Tyron asked. Shocked Kale. Dash, the tall, armored human, finally spoke again. "These plants killed half of our continent once, but the half that lived became stronger. Our world is not merciful. It teaches by fire. You must decide if you want to live through that lesson." The Valorian Council met again, divided. Some demanded the humans be removed. "They're not doctors," one council member cried. "They're executioners." But others argued, "We've tried everything else. Our ways failed. The humans. Their ways are harsh, but they work." They voted. Barely. By one vote, the humans were allowed to stay. That night, Kale walked through the garden alone. He knelt beside the bloodroot, placing a hand on the soil. It pulsed beneath him. He whispered softly, not to the plant, but to something older, something listening. From the shadows, Dax approached. "They hate us." Kale stood. "They should. They think we don't feel anything." "We do," Kale said. "But feelings don't win wars, and this is a war. A silent one, between life and rot." Elsewhere in the city, a healer broke into the human medical pod. He wanted to prove that the humans were using poison, that they were doing something dark. But what he found shook him to his core. Inside the ship, he found rows of data logs cases. Of Earth's past, footage of human cities burning under sickness, children with black lungs, entire continents wiped out by plague. He found something worse. Log of Project Red Bloom. The first time bloodroot was used on Earth. Over 3 billion deaths in 2 years. But the survivors? They were immune, hardened, changed. That was Earth's secret. They had already lived through what Valorian was facing. They had survived by becoming monsters. The healer dropped the log. Rand told the council some wanted to shut down the program. But others realized maybe the humans weren't cruel. Maybe they were just what survival looked like when kindness failed. A young patient, barely alive, begged to try the flower. His name was Al. The council said no. But Dax went to him anyway. Sat beside him, told him Earth's story. "We used to dream like you," Dax said. "We built cities, wrote poems, laughed. Then came the sickness. It didn't care about our dreams. It ate them. So we made new dreams, stronger ones." Al said nothing, just nodded. Dax gave him the tea. Al screamed for 2 hours. His heartbeat stopped once. His skin turned ice blue. But by morning, he stood, alive, strong. A voice began to grow in. The city. A strange voice. Not hopeful. Not afraid. Something in between. A voice that said, maybe this is what healing looks like. On a Deathworld, up in orbit, another black ship arrived. The first was just a garden. The second was a forge. A new phase was about to begin. The humans had not just come to heal, they had come to prepare. Eel's recovery changed everything. The boy who had once been hours from death was now walking through the city, stronger than any child his age. His breath was deep, his eyes sharp, and his skin, once pale and weak, was now hard like bark tough, textured and slightly glowing under light. Valorians gathered to watch him in silence. Some touched his hand. Some backed away in fear. But no one could deny the truth anymore. The Deathworlder's cure worked, and it came with a price. After Al, dozens of volunteers stepped forward. Families brought the dying. Some were noble, others poor. The human garden became a field hospital. Dax stood at its center, hands always busy, face always calm. His eyes never blinked during treatment. But this wasn't medicine as Valorians knew it. There were no beds, no warm lights, no soft voices. There was only pain, screaming, shaking, bleeding followed by silence. The third volunteer, a young woman named Rira, didn't survive. She was 22, a musician before the plague. Her family cried when she swallowed the bloodroot extract. At first, she trembled. Then she screamed. Her veins turned black. She clawed at her own chest, and Dax held her down. "Stay with me," he said. "Fight it." But she done still. Dead, the garden went silent. For a long moment, even the flowers stopped pulsing. Valorian guards stepped in. "This is madness," one shouted. "You're burning them alive." Dax stood and looked down at Rira's body. She was already dying. She took her chance. "You killed her." Dax's voice did not rise. "No. I gave her the only option. You wouldn't, the council demanded answers. The chamber was full of shouting. Some cried for the humans to leave. Others begged for more treatment. Kale entered silently. The room fell quiet. He placed Rira's body on the table. Her skin was cracked, her lips were blue. Her hands were still curled from the final spasm. Kale's voice was deep and calm. On Earth, when we faced this same plague, it took billions. Our people had to choose, fight the disease with the tools we had, or die waiting for the perfect answer. The perfect answer never came, but we survived. We became stronger. You call this strength? One elder asked, shaking. Look at her. Kale nodded. She fought. She died free, not crawling in her bed waiting for her lungs to rot. Dax stepped forward. You have a choice. Keep using your soft healing and watch your cities empty. Or accept ours, and know that some will die, but others will rise, changed and immune. Silence. Then a man stepped forward. Rira's brother. His face was pale, his hands shaking, but he stood tall. She volunteered. She believed I do too. I want the cure. The next day 10 more came. 2 died. The rest lived. 1 girl. Barely. 14 cried through her treatment, then stood a day later. Eyes gold like fire. Another man survived, but lost all his hair. His skin turned silver gray. He said he could feel things in the air heat, sound, even fear. They were changing not. Just healed, transformed. The council met again. A new word began to rise in whispers. Evolution. Dax explained more about Earth's history. He showed recordings of Earth's first red bloom fields, entire cities flattened and rebuilt with burning flowers. Footage of survivors walking through. Flames, their eyes glowing, their breath turning the air cold. Earth had been kind once, he said, but kindness had failed. Death taught them the truth. Our medicine is not gentle, Dax told the council. It's not meant to be. It's made for Deathworlders. And now, Valorian was becoming one. That night, Kale took a team to the northern district. The sickness had taken thousands there. Corpses filled the streets. He walked through the quiet, past bodies, past the smell of decay, and planted the red flowers himself. The soil hissed. The flowers bloomed in seconds. Their petals opened like mouths by morning. The plague cloud over the district was gone, but so were the people. The plants had absorbed the sickness and the rot, and the moisture and anything that moved. The council was horrified. You killed them all, Kale replied. They were already dead. But now the disease here cannot spread. The flowers took it. You burned a city, Kale nodded. And you'll thank me when your other cities live. In secret, Valorian scientists began studying the red flowers. They found something terrifying. The plant didn't just kill disease, it fed on it. Learned from it. Each new generation of bloodroot grew sharper, faster, more aggressive. It was adapting just like Earth did. Dr. Phi whispered to a colleague, "It's not just healing us, it's making us into something else." Dax heard her. "You're right," he said. "This isn't medicine, it's metamorphosis." And still more people came, begging for the cure. Choosing fire over slow death, the people of Valorian were starting to change their minds. They had asked for salvation. What they got was something older, something cruel, something honest. They got Earth's truth. To survive a death world, you must become one and high above them. More human ships stirred. The garden was just the beginning. Soon they would open the forge, and then survival would take on a new shape. The garden had grown. It started as a circle of red bloodroot flowers, glowing gently in the moonlight like lanterns made of living fire. But now it had become something else, something alive, something watching. The human ship opened its lower decks, unfolding steel platforms and planting boxes made from black carbon that shimmered like obsidian. New plants arrived. Strange ones. The Valorians came to look, but they didn't come close. Some of the new flowers growled. Others hissed when touched. There were vines that pulsed like veins, leaves that shimmered like glass, and stems that twisted to follow movement.
Oh.
One plant snapped shut when a bird flew too close. All that remained was a feather soaked in green. Liquid. Dr. Fye stood at the edge of the garden, trembling. "What are these?" she whispered. Dax stepped beside her. His face was calm, but his eyes never blinked. "We call this place the Garden of Monsters." Fye stared at the field of moving plants. "You grew these on Earth?" Dax nodded. "They grew themselves, mostly. After the plagues and wars, Earth became something different. It's not a world anymore. It's a test. Everything that lives there had to earn the right." She pointed at a long, coiled vine that was slowly tightening around a rock. "That one? Stranglethorn?" Dax replied. "It senses sickness. In blood, if it touches you and lets go, you're clean. If it wraps tighter, you're infected. And if I try to pull away, it breaks your bones." Fye backed away slowly. The council was horrified. When they visited the garden, Kale gave them a full Torah's version of kindness. He showed them the blight bulbs, plants that exploded with acidic gas strong enough to melt armor. He introduced them to Coldless, a moss that grew across frozen skin, preserving the dead without rot. He let them hear the wailing ivy which screamed. When it sensed fear, "This isn't a medical center," one counselor said, voice sharp with fear. "It's a battlefield." Kale nodded. "So is your planet now? This garden is your best hope," Kale finished. "These plants are not decoration. Each one is a weapon. Each one is also a cure. On Earth, everything is both." Despite the terror, the plants worked. The garden killed the sickness in entire districts. People who touched certain vines were tested instantly. One boy was covered in strange spores within hours. They absorbed his infection and left him stronger. Immune. But not everyone made it. One patient panicked while the vines were testing her. She ran. The garden did not understand panic. It understood only threat. The vines snapped. The flowers spat acid. The screams were heard 2 streets away. The council demanded the humans lock the garden. Kale refused. "You asked for help? This is help. It's not our fault your people aren't ready for it." A quiet voice rose from the people. A young mother whose child had been cured by one of the new plants. She stepped forward, faced the council, and said, "Maybe we need to change. Maybe our way of healing wasn't enough. Maybe Earth's way is the only reason some of us are still alive." The crowd fell silent. Behind them, the garden bloomed. New colors, new shapes. The plants were reacting to the soil, to the air, to Valorian itself. They weren't just healing, they were adapting to a new world, and Valorian was adapting to them in the western quarter. A boy was found climbing walls, his hands gripping stone with new strength. In the north, a girl's eyes changed. Could see in the dark. Survivors of the garden were developing traits not seen before in any Valorian. Some called it a blessing, others called it mutation. One priest screamed, "This is not healing. This is invasion." Dax corrected him. "No. This is evolution. This is what Earth had to do to survive. Now it's your turn." In secret, Valorian scientists began to map the genetic changes. They confirmed the unthinkable. The garden wasn't just curing the plague, it was rewriting their biology. Some council members pushed to destroy the garden before it was too late. They sent a squad with flame units. But when the soldiers entered, the garden responded. Not with force. With defense, the plants didn't attack. They blocked paths, grew faster, sealed doors, roots broke the soldiers' weapons. Gas filled the air, not deadly but confusing. By the time the squad made it out, 3 were unconscious. 1 had lost his memory, and none remembered why they entered in the first place. The council panicked, but Kale said only one thing: "You cannot control the garden. You must respect it. It is Earth's voice. It speaks in pain, but it never lies." As weeks passed, more people came to the garden by choice. Some offered themselves to the vines. Others lay beside the plants, praying for healing. Most survived, some didn't, but all who returned were different. Dax began marking them with a symbol, a red circle with a line through it. It was Earth's old mark. It's the mark of survivors. Soon, whispers filled the city. The garden gives. But it takes something too. Sci-Fi asked Dax what it meant. What does it take? Dax stared. At the night sky? Certainty, innocence, softness. The things you had before you knew what real survival feels like. Fi swallowed. And if we lose those things, Kale appeared behind them. Then you'll be ready for the forge. The what? Kale smiled barely. The next phase. The garden makes you stronger. The forge makes you ready. Valorian didn't understand, but they would. Because in the dark corners of the galaxy, the plague wasn't the only threat coming, and Earth hadn't. Just brought flowers, they had brought fire, and soon they would use it. It began as a whisper. A strange cough in the southern settlements. A tremble in the air where the sickness had already been cleared. Birds fell from the sky without a mark on them. The red flowers in the Garden of Monsters began to wilt, curling, their petals in silence. Dax was the first to notice. He stood before the bloodroot beds, watching as the once bright blooms lost their glow. Their crimson color faded to brown. They weren't dying. They were shutting down. Dax bent down, ran a scanner across the soil, and frowned. It's changing, he said quietly. Kale appeared behind him. The plague. Dax nodded. It's mutating. It's learning how to kill faster. By nightfall, 5 more cases had appeared. But this time, it wasn't the same disease. The symptoms had changed. Faster onset, higher fever, seizures within hours, internal bleeding by the end of the day. The humans moved quickly, taking samples, running scans. The new strain didn't just ignore the bloodroots curate fed on it. The same plant that once burned the plague now made it stronger. Dax called. An emergency meeting with the council. We gave you a solution, he said coldly. But your world didn't listen. It adapted too slowly. The disease has outgrown our garden. He said the plants were evolving, Dr. Fi argued. Chite said they would keep up. Dax didn't flinch. Everything evolves. Even death. Panic swept through the city again. Whole districts began to fall. People who had survived the first wave were getting sick again. This time, they weren't screaming. They were just going quiet. Eyes wide, skin pale.
Ow.
Then nothing. The plague wasn't killing violently anymore. It was killing cleanly, efficiently. That made it worse. The garden was no longer enough. The humans brought out something else. From the second ship, still silent in orbit, a capsule dropped into the garden. It cracked open like a black egg, releasing a foul-smelling vapor. Inside was a new plant. It didn't glow. It didn't hiss. It didn't even look alive. It was small, dark purple, and covered in scars. Its petals were leathery, stem twisted. Like broken wire, Kale called it by name. Ashthorn. Fi stared at it, confused. This is another flower? No, Kale said. This is war, Dax explained. Ashthorn wasn't a cure. It was a weapon. On Earth, it was never used until every other option failed. It didn't heal the infected, destroyed everything infected. Soil, air, blood. The ashthorn worked by burning all biological matter within its reach. It created a shockwave of death-purging infection by erasing entire zones. Nothing survived. Not plants, not animals, not even people. The council stood, shouting, "You can't be serious. That's genocide." Dax stared at them. No, that's prevention. Half our city is infected. Then half your city must burn. The vote was chaos. Many walked out. A few stayed. In the end, it wasn't the council who decided. It was the people. It's the ones watching their children fall asleep and never wake up. One family volunteered. Their entire neighborhood was infected. They asked for the ashthorn. They lit the field themselves. The smoke rose for hours. When it cleared, nothing remained. But the plague was gone. Word spread. Some called it murder. Others called it mercy. More zones asked for the Ashthorn. City split against some hiding from the cure, others begging for it. The Garden of Monsters was now divided. One half held life, the other fire. Phi began to break. She had spent her life healing, teaching, saving, but now she walked through corridors where children wept. Asking her why fire had taken their homes, she confronted Dax. "You're destroying us." "No," he said softly. "We're saving." "What's left? There has to be another way." Dax looked tired now, more human than before. "We had another way once. On Earth, we tried slow cures. Soft medicine. We buried billions with hope in their hands. Then we stopped hoping." Kale returned from the field one night with blood on his armor, not red, but black. He collapsed in the medical bay. Dax scanned. Him. Silence followed. Kale had the new strain, for the first time. The humans were afraid. If Kale fell, their system would break. He was more than a soldier. He was the Forge's key. The next day, Dax entered the deepest vault of their ship. Unlocked a box sealed in 3 codes, in his own blood. Inside was something older than the BLOOT. Not a flower. Not a tool. A spore. Cold. Gray. Pulsing. Dax stared at it for a long time, before whispering. "You weren't supposed to be used again." He brought it to Kale, injected it into his veins. The effect was instant. Kale screamed. The Forge armor cracked. His eyes rolled back. His heartbeat stopped. 10 minutes of silence. Then, he inhaled deep, cold. His eyes opened. They were silver now. His skin had hardened like rock. His breath misted the air. Kale had survived. But he was no longer just human. Phi saw him and stepped back. "What are you?" Kale looked at his hand. The next answer, the plague had evolved, but now, so had Earth's weapons. Valorian's people watched the sky again. It's no longer in hope, not even in fear. Now they watched to see which would come faster, the sickness or the fire. Smoke curled over the cities like dark wings. The scent of burning lifewood stone skin-filled the skies above Valorian, where once there were songs and fountains and soft gardens, now stood pillars of black flame. The Ashthorn cure had begun its work, and it did not ask questions, did not pause for tears. It simply erased. The plague had become too strong, too clever. The red flowers, even the new hybrid vines, could not keep up with its speed. People collapsed in the streets, dead before they could cry out. The air carried death now, even stepping. Outside meant risking exposure. The council had lost control. It was the people who made the next move. Entire districts sent messages to the Garden of Monsters. They begged for the Ashthorn. They pleaded for the fire. We would rather burn one message red than watch our children rot. And so the burnings began. Kale, now transformed. By the gray spore, led the fire crews. His eyes glowed like moonlight under his helmet. His armor cracked when he moved. He no longer flinched at screams. Not because he didn't hear them, but because he knew what waited if they didn't act. One by one, zones of Valorian were sealed off. Families held hands as the Ashthorn pods were lowered. The death bloom hissed as it opened. In seconds, everything inside the zone turned to ash bodies, walls, sickness. The land was clean, cold. Dax watched from above. Each cleansing appeared as a blue light on his map. Each blue light was a grave. Dr. Phi broke down during the 3rd week. She had helped light to burn zones. She had held a child's hand as his mother wept and said goodbye. That night, Phi stood in the garden and screamed at Dax. "You're killing more people than the plague ever did?" Dax didn't shout back. He simply answered, "Yes." "You call this medicine? You call this help?" "No. I call this what Earth had to become." Phi's voice cracked. "Why did you even come here?" Dax looked toward the sky. "Because you asked, and because this galaxy doesn't understand what survival means until it's burning." Inside the ship, the final stage was preparing. The Forge Valorian's land had been purified by fire. Now, the survivors would be reforged, rebuilt, changed. It's not just saved. Adapted, Kale walked into the council chamber for the last time. His new form was no longer just human. Plates of hardened skin ran down his arms like armor. His voice had changes, lower, sharper, with echoes inside it. "You still fear us," he said, "even after we stopped your extinction."
How one.
Elders stood. "You saved our bodies, but you killed our cities, our homes, our way of life." Kale stepped forward, then rebuilt it stronger, the way Earth did. "You think destruction is strength?" "No," Kale said. "I think forgetting pain is weakness." The room fell silent. Outside, the wind carried ash, but something else was happening. The zones burned by ashthorn began to show signs of strange growth. New plants were rising from the blackened soil hybrids of Valorian flora and Deathworld bioseeds. Trees with silver leaves, grass that hummed when stepped on, vines that glowed under starlight. Even the air smelled different, sharper. Cleaner, Valorian wasn't dying. It was changing. People began returning to the burn zones. They built shelters, planted food. The survivors, those who had gone through the garden and come out altered, were immune to the plague. Even its new form. One man, scarred and half-blind from the treatment, stood on a rooftop and shouted, "We are not victims, we are reborn." More followed him. A movement began. Not rebellion, not worship, but transformation. These were the forged Valorians. No longer fully Valorian, not fully human. Something new. Dax watched from above. He turned to Phi, who now sat beside him, eyes empty. "This is what we meant to do," he said softly. "Not heal you, evolve you." Phi looked at him. "They never told us the truth." "You did," he answered. "You just thought survival would look prettier." In one last burned city, a girl emerged from the soot. She had survived a full ashthorn wave, no protection, no garden dose. Her skin glowed silver. Her voice echoed when she spoke. She was immune to the air, the spores, the rot. Dax scanned her DNA, new genes, new cells. Something impossible. Something not even Earth had seen. Valorian had done more than survive. It had gone beyond Earth. Kale stood before the forge, now ready, now open. Inside were machines older than the plague, machines designed to rewrite life. Earth had used them only once. Now it was Valorian's turn. The choice was simple. Step into the forge. Or wait to see what the plague would become next. Because deep in the stars, a new signal had just been picked up. One not from Valorian, but from another infected world. The plague was not finished. It was only beginning. And Earth's fire would soon burn again. The forge had begun its work. Massive, ancient, and humming with hidden power, the structure stood like a mountain of black steel wrapped in vines and burning light. No longer just a machine, it pulsed with something deeper intention. Valorians, survivors, marked by fire and blood, lined up at its gates. One by one they entered, not as people seeking help, but as beings ready to shed what they had been. Inside, they were scanned, broken down, rewritten, rebuilt. The forge didn't ask questions. It didn't explain. It simply reprogrammed life cell by cell, nerve by nerve, using data carved into its walls from centuries of Earth's war with extinction. Kale watched them emerge, stronger, harder, glowing with strange light in their veins. The forged no longer resembled the soft people Valorian had once raised. These were creatures of pain, of purpose, weapons, yes. Survivors, absolutely. But in the middle of this rebirth, a signal arrived. Not from Valorian, from Earth. Encrypted. Buried in ancient code. Meant only for Dax and Kale. Dax opened the file alone. It began with a whisper. A face. A woman. Human or once human, staring through the screen with eyes made of crystal. Behind her, Earth looked. Wrong. Twisted forests. Red skies. Towers. Of bone and steel. A voice calm and final. Echoed. "If you're hearing this, it means another world has called for help. It means the fire has spread. You must choose carefully. Do not let them become like us. Phi entered the room. She saw Dax frozen, pale. What is it? She asked. Dax didn't answer at first. Then he turned to her slowly and spoke words she never expected from him. We never meant to survive. Phi's heart froze. You saying... He played the rest of the message. It was Earth's confession, the red bloom, the bloodroot, the ashthorn. The forgel of it had been born not from science alone, but from desperation. Earth's final war had not been between nations, but between the living and the infected. The plague hadn't just killed, it had changed those it touched, made them aggressive, united them into one vast, silent mind. The Deathroot didn't just cure the plague, it destroyed identity. Those who survived the firewave were no longer human in the true sense. They had lost their empathy, their past, their softness. Earth had become a planet of survivors, but not of people. Kale had once been human. Now he was something else. Phi's voice shook. You made us like this on purpose. Dax stared at her. No, we offered you a choice. You chose to follow. You burned your cities. You walked into the forge, we warned you, but you chose fire. Over death? Same as we did. Phi trembled. Then what are we becoming? Kale stepped into the room. His armor cracked again. His eyes glowed silver. You are becoming what Earth became. When the galaxy turned its back on us, suddenly the alarm blared. A new signal appeared, flashing red. Not a message, not a cry for help. A warning. Another planet had sent out a distress call, but this one had no living senders. The signal was E-generated, repeating one phrase, Plague Level 5, entire planetary system compromised, infection airborne, memory gone. Burn recommended. Kale looked at Dax. Dax nodded. We go. Phi stepped between them. Going to do it again? Yes, Kale said. We always go. You turn every world into monsters. Kale's voice was like ice. No, we give them the tools to fight. Whether they become monsters is up to them. Phi looked out at her people, half changed, half waiting, some with glowing skin, some who no longer spoke, only listened. All of them stronger. All of them different. Valorian was no longer Valorian. It was the first new Deathworld. Earth had created, and it would not be the last. Phi walked into the forge alone. Inside, she placed her hand on the core. The machine asked. Nothing. It simply welcomed her. She whispered, Then let me become what I must, but let me remember who I was. The machine paused. The first time something flickered in its response. A delay, hesitation, maybe. Memory, outside, Kale boarded. The second ship. Dax followed. Above them, the sky opened. A new journey began, and Earth's fire flew once more toward a new world, new infection, and a new terrible cure. Because in the galaxy's deepest silence, the only thing louder than a scream is the sound of a death world answering a call for help. The stars no longer looked the same, not to Valorian, not to those who had survived the fires, the flowers, the ash, the forge. The sky had changed because they had changed. The ones who remained were no longer the children of a peaceful garden world. They were not Earth's people either. They were something new, something born from death and shaped in flame. The forge had finished its final cycle. The last of the volunteers had walked in, screamed, changed, and emerged. There was no ceremony, no joy, no pride, only silence. And in that silence, they stood tall, hardened, cold-eyed. Some glowed with inner light. Some no longer bled when cut. Others could move faster than the wind, or sense danger like a shadow across the soul. These were the forged Deathworlders, not by name, but by nature. Dr. Phi stood at the edge of the new garden. No longer hissed or growled. It shimmered. The plants had adapted fully to Valorian's new climate and to the new people. They didn't attack. They listened. They read blood. They whispered back. Phi no longer wore a white healer's robe. She wore armor grown from vine metal, a gift of the forge. Her eyes were bright, her breath calm, but her voice had changed. It was no longer soft, it was steady. Kale approached her, armored head to toe, the original human forge commander. Dax followed, still the same cold, sharp watching. But even he seemed unsure as he looked at what Valorian had become. "They're ready," Kale said. Phi nodded. "I know." "You don't have to come," Dax said. "We've never had a non-human lead a burn team." Phi looked up at the black sky. A second moon was rising born from Earth's orbiting forge ship. "I'm not non-human anymore," she said. "Not fully. I'm not fully Valorian either."
Ow.
Kale handed her a new device's signal key. It shimmered red and black. A burn beacon. "Every forge team gets one," he said. "Only use it if the planet is too far gone." Phi nodded and took it. She already knew. They all did. The planet they were going to had gone silent. The plague had eaten its memory, its machines, its history. There were no people left to ask for help. Only the systems remained, repeating warnings into the void. This time, Valorian would answer. This time, not Earth. A forged world would go to war. They called themselves Ash Team 1. Each member had survived the garden and the flame. Each had walked through the forge and emerged reborn. It's no longer just soldiers or doctors or scientists. They were adaptable, dangerous, alive in ways the rest of the galaxy couldn't understand. They boarded a sleek ship made of Earth-forged alloy and Valorian crystal. Its name was carved in glowing letters across the hull. Hope is fire. As it lifted from Valorian's surface, the people below did not cheer. They stood in silence, hands over hearts, eyes forward. It was not celebration. It was acceptance. The galaxy was changing, and Valorian was no longer its victim. It was its response. Inside the ship, Phi looked at her team. Some looked human, some didn't. One had skin made of scaled iron. Another had hair like copper wire, alive with static. A third didn't speak, only blinked and sent thoughts. "First contact will be cautious," Phi said. "If we find survivors, we help. If we find infection," she didn't need to finish. Kale knew. They would burn if they had to, because now survival had rules, and Earth had taught them every one as they slipped into hyperspace. Dax watched from the command deck of the orbiting forge ship. Kale stood beside him, quiet. "They're not like us," Dax said. Kale nodded. "They're better. Do you think they'll make the right choices?" Kale stared into the stars. "They'll make the hard ones. That's all that matters." The galaxy had cried out for help once. Earth had answered. With flowers. With monsters. With fire. Now that legacy moved forward, not from Earth, but from a new world. A world that burned and bloomed and forged. Its survivors in pain and truth. Valorian. The first forged, Deathworld, and the monsters they created weren't monsters at all. They were just the last hope of a galaxy. Too soft to understand what survival really meant, until now.